Spook.
Matt Rowell, 3 votes.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm Matt Rowell, 3 votes.
Do you really give a fuck about the Brownlow?
Not now.
No, but do you ever? Isn't it a farce of an award? I mean, congratulations, Matt Rowell. But isn't it a farce of an award?
It is. Now, unfortunately, as I was saying just earlier before,
To Grant Thomas.
To Grant Thomas. Deserved winner, obviously. Most of
Thomas.
the time...
Congratulations, Grant Thomas.
Most of the time, the winners are deserved. But I seriously reckon he copped around 10 to 12 votes more than he should have based on his output.
Yeah.
And this is more of an attack on the umpiring fraternity that can't fucking get any adjudication on the field right. Are entrusted without any statistics behind them to pick who the best on ground is. And I think tonight it hit fast levels of an epic proportion. I think the Cripps thing last year started the rot, and now it's become a massive joke.
Well, there was that one game which was highlighted by various people. Grant Thomas on X posted that, he was the 32nd ranked player.
32nd Dream Team ranked player.
And I don't think he got coaches' votes that game either.
No, well, there was 3 games where he didn't get coaches' votes. I think one of them, and it's not a slight on Rowler, I think it's more about the
umpiring.
The umpiring. He got 18 possessions in that game or something. It was like 18 or 20 and got 10 clangers.
Yeah.
And somehow was voted best on ground. There you have it. I mean, I'm sure it was just our bitter Collingwood tears.
You talk about like Cripps last year. I don't think Nick had a 38 vote year either. So I don't know how he managed 38. A couple of years ago, Lachie Neale was highlighted, had 2 really low possession games. He got 3 votes in each. It's a farce. I don't know if the umpires just conflate one play with another, like they go off and they go, who was good? And they go, how about Lachie Neale? And instead they're actually thinking of fucking McLuggage or someone. But they just...
I'm pretty sure they just walk up to someone and they touch their face and they go,
hello,
it's Matt Rowell.
Oh, okay.
That's it, yeah.
It's a stupid award, but I was saying to you, it's not really the best award because if you have a team where, look at the Anderson Rowell thing. Like people said, Anderson will take votes on if it didn't. But sometimes you have circumstances where you have, like when we're all good, you'd have like Swan and Pendlebury taking votes off one another, and then Judd would win it. But Judd would be the only person getting votes at Carlton, and it's like, well, did you have a better year than these two, or is it just that these two took votes off one another, which allowed you? So I don't know if there's a way to grade the votes or whatever, but it is a really absurd award. It's just purely a midfielder's award. It's not even a statistic-based award anymore, the way it used to be.
No, I think it had some credibility around it, but now it's just a procession, really.
Well, you go back to when we would have been growing up, you had guys like Tony Lockett win it, who was a full forward. You had some ruckman win it, like Scott Wine, Barry Round.
More.
I don't know if any defenders ever won it, but they did get votes at one stage. But now it is purely just midfielders and that's it. And it doesn't really have that much credibility for me. No offense to Matt Rowell or anyone who's won the Brownlow in the last 10 years. But it really is a crock of shit award. The biggest thing for tonight, I think, was when that Melbourne St Kilda game.
Oh, fucking hell.
When Wangan and Miller got 2 votes. And even the Melbourne players were looking at each other and going, are you serious? Are you serious?
There was a number of times during the broadcast where there was just unplanned laughter from the crowd. I think just at the fast nature of it all, and Speedy Dillon tried to get things going again, but it's a wank.
Yeah. You know what else is a wank?
What?
Preliminary final. Congratulations, Brisbane's way too good.
Yep.
So I just want to qualify at the beginning because I'm going to do some fucking whinging at some point. Selections going in that game. We brought Jeremy Howe back, I think through cloning of DNA material from 69 million years ago or something.
Somehow Howe returned.
Somehow. He looked like Palpatine too.
He moved like him.
But no Hill. I'm actually, because we were talking about this, and then one of the comments that came from JCD, who's actually a good friend, and I've had a few drinks with him. People can disagree with me if they want, but I think we are starting to see glimpses of McRae being an overrated coach. Have not enjoyed his rhetoric during the year about just needing to qualify and we'll use this to grow. BS. He was outcoached by Fagan again. He lets an elite ball user in Houston run around doing sweet F all, and he just seems lost out there. I would have played him wing half forward in the last quarter. We carried Pendles and Howe in underdone with niggles and left Hill out because he was underdone. Amazing logic.
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait for 2026. Bring on more. And we actually spoke about that. It was like, the goalie missed just as many games as Hill. Played 12 minutes in the VFL game and then was selected the following week. Obviously, we don't know the whole story behind Hill.
Although we have our suspicions.
Yeah.
Everyone.
But I think this was like the worst selections that McRae had made since Malthouse in the 2011 grand final. Howe was clearly just, I don't know if they felt let's put him out there and his presence and him being a general will help keep. But I actually thought that first quarter, they were all at a loss. It was like they didn't know how to synergize because they'd thrown Howe back in. Darcy Moore, I don't know what happened there. Like, he had a brilliant game, his best game for about 5 years 2 weeks ago. I don't think he went for one mark until about the last 90 seconds of the game. He just went straight back into full punch-on mode, which didn't really work out.
Yeah, there's a lot of them doing the manic punching.
And then you have Pendles, who carried in an issue, and they banked on it being okay.
At his age?
At his age.
Unbelievable. No, because I heard on the interview with Buckley today that apparently he had an abductor issue or something at the back of the Melbourne game.
Yeah.
And they thought they'd obviously were going to manage it and all that sort of thing. The baffling thing I find with this is that he was talking to the trainer or one of the physios or whatever for an extended period of time in the warm-up. At that point, they then decided to play him, and he lasted about 8 seconds.
Yeah.
Surely you would have fucking thrown caution to the wind and brought the emergency on, or one of the emergencies on at his place if there was any doubt for him. Give him another week. We potentially might be making a grand final. Even if we won, he wouldn't be playing. So what was it all for?
I find that absurd. It's also, you went in with this obvious question mark over him. McRae talked about in the press conference that once Pendles got injured in the first 90 seconds, it threw all their plans into disarray. So you put yourself in that position, not Pendlebury's injury, because you risk that.
If you knew he was carrying something and he was a higher than average chance of going out, wouldn't you have a plan B? Or C?
Going into
3 votes to Matt Rao?
Prior to that game, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it really required Collingwood to just throw out the romanticism and say, hey, Scott, we don't want you out there, but we can't risk putting you in Collingwood and hoping it'll work on the night. We're just going to put you through an extremely rigorous fitness test. And if you survive that, you play.
Sorry, what was that word?
Yeah, fitness test.
Is that a written test at Collingwood?
You go back to 1990, so I don't know how many younger audience members we have, but
I can see 3 of them.
Alan Richardson had broken his collarbone and was really unlikely and did everything he could to get up for the grand final. He played every game that year. And Lee Matthews gave him a real hard working out, like just kept banging him and banging him and banging him.
Oh, not literally.
No. And Richardson withstood it, but Matthews' thinking was, well, he's going to get hit in the game when he's not expecting it. So when Richardson wasn't expected, he just ran full tilt into him. And the next day, Richardson just rang and said, yeah, I can't play.
I'm in a coma, I can't play.
But it just showed, like, Matthews understood, I can't have you out there if you're a 5% risk. Whereas with Pendlebury, it seemed like a really high probability that this wasn't going to work. And they've rolled the dice without any due diligence in, well, are you going to be able to make it? Let's risk it. I would rather you broke down on the Thursday or Friday at a fitness test rather than in the first 90 seconds of an important game.
Well, I heard they went the law of averages path, and they said to Pendles, are you fitter than Mio? Yes. No. Are you fitter than Howe? Yes. Well, then you're good enough to play.
And this is no disrespect intended to Scott Pendlebury. It is going to come across this way, though. When he went off, like in the first 90 seconds, and he went down and they checked, and then they said, okay, you're done. McRae had to go up to him then and say, I can't have you looking like a deer in the headlights sitting on the back bench here. I need you to get really active and animated and at least have some energy So when the players look back, they're not seeing you heartbroken. They're seeing you wanting them to win, regardless. And that's no offense to Pendlebury, but just like the way he looked there was like someone shot this guy's puppy, and it's a horrible message to be sending across the playing list. Who, they're doing rotations, they're running off, they're seeing him there. I don't know, maybe he was saying the right things, but the way he actually looked was just like, I thought that was just going to be so demoralising, to see. I know Darcy Moore is the captain in title, but I think Pendlebury is still really the spiritual leader of that club. Yeah. You needed him to really just go, yeah, come on, I don't know what the fine is for jumping off the sub bench, but to get him really animated and shouting and cheering and giving advice and talking to players who are coming off, talking to mids, doing some coaching. He's allowed to do that. And if there is a fine for getting off the sub bench, which I can't imagine there would be, but if there was, then just pay it. Have a much better aesthetic to him sitting there. And then going to the game, you mentioned two others, Mychek.
He couldn't fucking walk, let alone run.
No, and that was, again, a really, really bad mistake. I don't know what McStay's at, but what was the point? That was like watching Ben Reid again from 2011.
It was actually sad.
Yeah.
He just couldn't move. And he played like he couldn't move. Did you notice?
Well, after that performance, you'd be saying to Melbourne, yeah, pick 50. that was a,
I would have been doing the jumper presentations at half time.
I love we've always been big advocates. He's a warrior of the club.
Yep.
But that's another one where they should have said, what is the best you're going to give us? 4%? That's probably not going to be at a level that we need. I know they always say, like, players are carrying niggles at this time of year. That wasn't a niggle. He was carrying a boulder, and he just could not move. He was
carrying the stone of shame.
Yeah. It was really, really unfortunate. So, and this is also where I think McRae's being costed by his own obstinance. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. We do all the main talking off camera. You should be around for it. But we talk about like Brisbane being re-energized by all these young guys they've brought through. Similarly with Geelong, and we've asked, like, who's the young guy you brought through? Oh, Ned Long. And because you haven't really cultivated that next generation in any way over the last 4 years, I know there's like guys like Nick who were taking care of himself. It just meant when push came to shove at this point, there was really no one to go to. Ed Allen maybe, sort of, but you've never really given the response. Again, we don't know. The outsiders looking in. Doesn't seem to have ever had the responsibility of being like a primary midfielder. I know you've played Charlie Dean in a few games, but that to me, it looks very wishful thinking. They just seem like, if Pendle's was out and Mychek was out and Howe was struggling, who are the alternatives? And then you look at it, it's like Dan McStay, and then maybe physically his shot. You didn't really have anything to fall back on. And that's because in the last 4 years, you haven't really cultivated anything. And the guys you've brought in, there's no disrespect to them, they're redundant additions. Like Lucky Schultz, and I've probably said this, to a 2023 grand final, you win, and you have on the list Elliott, McCreery, Hill, Ginnivan, Joe Richards, Harvey Harrison. There's one I've missed out there. And it's like, maybe we'll add another small forward. And I understand you love the pressure, but shouldn't you have prioritised finding a replacement for Nathan Murphy, given he was concussed? And surely by that point you knew this guy's not going to play much longer.
Oh, he was unstable.
Yeah, in terms of his concussion.
Yeah, you just knew he was going to go at some point. It's just a matter of when.
And and the thing we've seen too, all right, so let's point out 3 things here. Bailey Smith, one of the best on ground against Hawthorn. Bailey Smith, what did he get, about 20 votes in the Brownlow medal? Bailey Smith, All-Australian. Don't give us this shit that Dan Houston is still learning the team game plan.
It is a mockery, really.
Why is Perryman not taking that long to learn? Why Membry not take that long? But why Markov not learn? What is this crock of shit that you need a whole year to learn the game plan?
I think, unfortunately, a lot of it is we have a large majority of the supporter base that will swallow anything that comes out of the club hook, line and sinker. And they know that. They can say these things and they can believe these things. But the reality is what you see each week. And his performances were nowhere near good enough. He's been a major disappointment this year.
And I can't remember who else, or someone else said, but Josh is doing his role. Then why'd you recruit him? Again, why did you prioritise a halfback flanker? You have about 7 of them at the club.
I think if there's one thing Collingwood's demonstrated over the journey, it's its best available approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what it'll go for. Do you draft or do you trade for need? No, you just go for the biggest name that you can hopefully land, or a particular. They've always done in their drafting. It's the best available approach. Do you reckon we've ever gotten any?
I'm sure
a lot of you probably right every now and then.
I think everyone identified, even in 2023, you need another key positioner, and you need another midfielder, another really high grade midfielder. You didn't need another small forward, and you picked up one who you could have picked up a year later on free agency anyway. Thank you, Graham Wright. And you picked up a halfback flanker, which was not a need. And the thing I would have liked to see the club do is just get really lateral with their thinking when Houston came up. It could have been like, they could have said to Carlton, we're going to help you get Houston, but we want, what have we want? Sam Walsh or whatever. Just as an example, I'm not saying that's who we should have went after. But they should have actually said, there's an opportunity here for us. We don't actually need him, but let's use him as leverage to get something we do need. Kevin Sheedy used to do that a lot at Essendon. He would bring in third parties and that to get what he wanted. The list management at Collingwood, it's a little bit scary. We had this whole thing about our age, how we were going this year. And toward the end of the year, a lot of those prognostications seem to have come true. Like you had Pendle's getting the old man injury, Howe getting the old man injury, and they started to look a little bit fragile. You left too much on Nick. The Goey just didn't play enough to really consistently be able to apply himself.
No.
And where was the improvement coming from?
No, I think ultimately, even though we did get some games into some younger, hopefully up and comers, as the season narrowed towards the pointy end, it was just that intention to get those aged guys into the side and squeeze out the injection years. Because come the prelim side and I suppose even the qualifying final side, who was the newbie? Ned Long and Steele was subbed in, but Steele, and I actually thought he acquitted himself quite well in both games. So that's encouraging. But there was nothing. There was no injection of youth aside from those two.
Yeah, I mean, Ed Allen played somewhat, but
he was shuffled off towards the end, and probably fair enough. Probably dual rest.
But it also felt like he was never used properly. I mean, I don't watch the VFL.
I think there's a lot of that.
Lot, but the people I've spoken to who are VFL watchers have said, when he was given the chance to go inside, he excelled. And when he was played more as an outside mid, he didn't. And then you go back to last year's last game against Melbourne. Understandably, Melbourne had like a VFL-based team in. But Ellen played on the inside and looked, what have we got here? And that never seemed to have happened this year.
That's because of Ned Long.
And the thing is, but it's just, you get back to Malthouse as a coach, and I recall there was a game against Richmond. I don't remember the exact players, but it was like he had who was Brad Dick, Alan Tuvey. I can't remember the other ones, but at certain stages, he had these 3 young guys just in the centre, and he was rotating them through, and he was giving them a taste of it. And he was obviously seeing for himself what these guys brought. In the 4 years McRae's been here, when has he really done that? When has he actually said to a young player, this is your responsibility, grab it, take it? I mean, he's such a great life coach in terms of, hey, we're not losers, we're winners, and all this sort of stuff, and we'll get better. But where do we see that cultivation of the next generation that should have been coming in and should have been forcing out the guys like Hoskin, Elliott, and Markov, and whoever else there is there? I mean, this is another thing too, is the way they've selected that side. There's not been very, very little, outside of maybe Ned Long, but things sort of fell his way. There's been very little selection pressure from beneath to make the incumbents go, okay, I've got to really go above and beyond because there's someone knocking down the door for my position. I go back to 1981, when Collingwood recruited Mark Williams, he told Peter Dacos, I'm going to take your position as a centreman. And he did. And that just shows what it takes to succeed. He's like, I am going to do everything possible to dislodge you. Now, I don't know if that's happening and they're not just being rewarded, but then if that is happening and not being rewarded, it's like, well, that's another failure of selection and list cultivation.
I heard Williams also said that he should crush the enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of the women.
Oh, well, there's more than women just lamenting on
No, there was mention of
Saturday.
Lamingtons.
The other thing, too, you look at the side. So, again, being a big advocate of Mason Cox, but putting him on Harris Andrews just was bizarre. It was just like basically saying, we're just going to bomb it. You're taller. Have a contest. And multiple times they kicked it to his disadvantage. I would have thought a much better option would have been something like even Hoskin Elliott. Bring him up and just say, you're going to be on Harris Andrews. You know what? Lead him away from the contest. Be a decoy. If he doesn't go with you, then you're the man. This sort of like, we're just going to play Harris Andrews at his own game. He's one of the best intercept marks in the league. Let's see how we go at beating him at that. It's just foolhardy. Why would you not then try and expose him as like, let's see if he's going to run both ways? Why not play someone who's going to put that pressure on him?
I think what exacerbated that, though, also, too, was some of our entries into the 50 were diabolically bad. There was one I recall, and I'm sure I've got the two players right. There was, I can't remember who was running in. Let's say it was Lipinski or someone like that into the 50 arc. And this is the view I had from up top of the stand. Cox was leading out of the square, and I think the goey was dropping back, and there was a fair gap between the two of them. Yeah. And so he kicked straight in the middle of the two.
Yeah.
Like, you go, fucking pick one. Two of them were in a fucking really good position. Yeah. And you've managed to fucking cough up what should have been a gimme goal into a battle, and I think they won possession and cleared it out.
Yeah.
And you sit there going, fucking hell. But there was a few of those moments.
But they've done that for the second half of the year. I mean, that Fremantle game where we had 20 forward 50 entries in the third quarter and kicked one goal. They haven't addressed it, but they don't seem to address it because one of the things they really, and I've lamented this, is this need to just win territory regardless. So let's kick it, handball it, punch it. Doesn't matter if anyone's actually there to try and win territory, and then we'll reapply pressure and force a spillage. And it'll be like a rugby scrum. We're just constantly pushing forward. And the amount of times they did stuff where they just gave it straight to an opposition player.
I did my head in on the night. I think I messaged you about it. The amount of tap-ons and just punches blindly that Brisbane just had someone roving and then it would send it back and going, at what point, when you keep doing something and it's not working, does not a light go off in your head saying, maybe we should stop this?
Yeah.
But no. At all fucking costs, try and gain territory. Bang, bang, bang. We weren't winning possession on the back end of it. So what's the sense?
The other thing too, I mean, we're talking about this. I mean, I know a lot of people disagree. I just still don't think Darcy Craman's a very good tap ruck. I think Darcy fought absolutely obliterated him. And if you were going to go for the tall matchup on Harris Andrews, I thought it would have been better. Let's play Cox as the primary ruck because he's a much better tap ruckman, and let's play Darcy Cameron as the forward on Harris Andrews because he's a much better mark. So there are just things like that. I mean, it really makes me question how good is McRae as a tactician, because this whole game plan only seems to work if you're getting that 200, 220 pressure rating. And as we've seen over his tenure, predominantly we have games where we just do nothing for 70 minutes and then we turn on 30 minutes of scintillating football and it's like, oh, how exciting was that? We came back from 4 or 5 goals down, but it's like, why did we get into that position? And it feels like we didn't get into a position because we got into that position because we could not maintain that insane pressure rating for a whole game or even the bulk of the game. So, I mean, that's another concern because that's what it is. The pressure, if it's not there, it just feels like the whole game plan starts to fall apart. And once that actually falls apart, it starts to expose certain players. Not going to name anyone specific. But I think there's some really good there's some role players who look really good when we're up and running, but when it's falling apart, they're not the guys who are going to kickstart you back up. They actually look lost, and they look like they don't know what to do. It feels to me like going into the next 3-4 years, you have clubs like Brisbane who's benefited from father sons. I have no problem with that. And recruiting, and Gold Coast, the Nepo babies who are profiting from the AFL, and North who's profiting from just being in net for 10 years. And they're going to build monster sides. And we're not. We're going to just have that typical battling Collingwood side with Nick at the top, and that's pretty much it. And all the other guys like the Gully and Moore and all that, they're only going to get a couple more years out of them. I don't know how they're going to rejuvenate the list, given the draft hand, trading hand, the collateral they have. they rebuild the list. And sorry, just before you go on, and you hear stories about like Brisbane, who's in the grand final next year, have Oscar Allen and Ridley and Sam Draper all on their hit list. And meanwhile, we're going for a guy who can't get a game at Sydney
in Bulla,
in a side who's had all these injuries this year and had injuries to their key forwards this year. And against that Moneyball, it's that Moneyball attitude as they had with Darcy Cameron. Let's get this guy cheap, and we believe there's something there that we can exploit. We've talked about this for years. You have not used a high draft pick on a key position player or a key forward. You keep looking for these Hail Marys.
Yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say now. You just kept going on for 20 minutes.
Well, someone had to.
Anyway, move on. Whatever it was will come back to me.
Will it?
Probably not.
All right, so first quarter, I mean, it wasn't really that unusual to start rusty. Geelong did it the night before.
Yep. I don't think anyone except me was panicking.
Yep. No, everyone was panicking. The people I was watching were saying, I'm not worried. This is what Geelong did. Give them a little bit of time to get into it. Actually, should actually say as an aside, Ron Connolly wrote an article years ago that talked about, like, since they brought this new system in, a lot of the teams who win the first final and go straight into the prelim or whatever it is, they lose now because the way it is structured where you have a bye before the finals and then you play that one game, and if you win it, then you have another 2 weeks off before your prelim. So you've really had like one game in 4 weeks.
Yeah, Scott lamented it years ago when it started. You're essentially playing bugger all games across 4 or 5 weeks. Yeah, I think you'd almost drop the bye. What is it serving? I mean, it was only on the back of that stupid reaction with Ross Lyon resting half his side.
Which has the prerogative to do also.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if anything, you really, to ensure a good grand final contest, maybe you'd have that bye after the prelim. Give everyone a week to refreshen up and then attack the
Well, they're talking
final.
about that now because you look at Tom Stewart from Geelong, he won't be able to play because he's got the concussion protocol. So if he had the bye before the grand final, he could play. And that's the really bad thing is the concussion. If you're concussed in the prelim, that's it, you're out. You can't play the grand final. Also, if you had that 2 week, you had that bye, you could do all your bullshit like the Brownlow and let the player do all the press and all that first week without having it being such a major detriment to their preparation. I know in the past when we've had a player win the Brownlow going into the grand final, it's always like a worry, how much is this going to be a disruption because now they've got to do all the media and stuff and all like that. So if you had that bye, it would work a lot better. But it's the typical AFL thing. Well, Ross Lyon did this one, so we now we need to make a major.
Do we admit we get it wrong, or do we just keep doing it?
Jeez,
what do you reckon?
The AFL is so arrogant in their refusal to take any accountability that they should just ditch the AFL logo and reveal it's actually a Disney logo under it. Second quarter, 6 goals straight we kicked, and they kicked 3 points. Were you back and booking grand final tickets?
I do fucking know. It was an enjoyable quarter of footy. Don't get me wrong. At half time, though, I thought that really all we're going to do is keep them at bay now and have another burst. They looked tired in the second quarter. I thought, I thought it was going to reflect the Geelong Hawthorn game where Hawthorn looked like wheel beaters, and then after half time they just ran out of steam. And Brisbane's credit, they
we ran out of steam. It looked like
they've played 3 games in a row, haven't they? 3 weeks in a row in Brisbane, So it really showed that tiredness thing. I think when you're a supremely fit and good side like Brisbane are, then you can work through that and probably actually works in your benefit as we saw. But I was reasonably confident at half time. I was thinking about the grand final and stuff like that. So more fool me.
Well, 2 things I think I've seen this happen in the past with let's say clubs coming off a 5 or 6 day break, and they're always expected to tire because they're playing a side that's had a bigger break. But what happens is that side for lesser break, they just get the momentum and that adrenaline just carries them through.
Oh, it's certainly a drive there.
Yeah, it drives them, and that's sort of a thing which is what I'm going to say now is, what I sort of liked about Brisbane is they didn't spend the whole fucking year managing every single player on the list and giving them a break.
Brisbane's been pretty consistent with their run in. They don't start seasons particularly hot and hard. They sort of just build momentum and just keep it going.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that would be a recipe for success?
Going back to the managing thing, I think you really need to look at the reality. If you need to manage this many players, that many players should not be on the list because that's become a liability. And the one thing I'll just throw it aside to is, I mean, where did the season go wrong? I think there's a lot of things that went, were missteps. But I think the biggest misstep was the management of players, bringing guys in, taking them out. Like Lipinski had 3 weeks off of a concussion, came in, played 1 game, and was managed again. I don't understand any of this. You are effectively cultivating a side which is having to behave like they just keep having injuries and they can't settle, and it's just sort of constantly just rotating players out and in, and covering for them for a week and all that. And it totally, you look at like the side that we were for the first half of the year as opposed to the second half, they're 2 different sides.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just say, I don't think it was just tied to sort of the older players. I think it was just the way they were managed constantly. And it's that sort of thing. When you're going well, why? It's sort of like, when people talk about someone kicking them 2 goals on the run and then they run off. And it's like, why are you running off now? You're hot. And that's the sort of thing on a grander scale. I think, well, when you're playing well, why are you managing? And then it goes to what you've always said is like when McRae declared, oh, well, we've qualified for the finals now.
Yeah, I think that.
What sort of message does that send?
It just said you've done enough work for the moment.
Yep.
And it clearly had a knock-on effect.
Yep. And then you go into the third quarter. I mean, Brisbane just really hit us hard. They kicked 7 goals, 3 points to our 2 goals, 3. I know some are going to go through the umpiring, and I thought it was appalling. I thought like there were appalling decisions both ways, but I thought there was a few that just sort of really hurt momentum. I don't think we would have won regardless, but
no, it didn't help at the time.
I think that second half, the way it played out, it really almost became like this could end up in an 8-9 goal loss. And, we had a little spurt, but it came a little bit too late, and it relied on a few too many.
Oh, I think we went epically dumb with some of our decision making at the end there, and I think that can be a side effect of the knock on of the pressure. I mean, the pressure. I don't know what the numbers were with their pressure, but I think
they were 268 at one stage.
Brisbane snuffed the life out of us with the pressure, and we did not cope well with it. I think 2 things we did poorly around that was the pressure knocked us off, and our defending was fucking appalling when they were going forward. Not defence in itself, but just even the transition. We were guarding space and leaving their players free.
Yeah.
And they were just going, oh, fuck, this is easy. And so they were getting it back up there really quite simply. There was the one that fucking killed me in the fourth quarter was leaving Rayner on his own. He's one of the most damaging blokes that they've got. He had about 20 metres clear and they just dropped it straight onto his chest.
Yeah.
And I think we were building some momentum at that stage, and that flattens everyone. It's like, fuck. And you could see the defenders all started arguing at one point about, you should have been here, you should have been here. And you think, oh, that's not a good sign. When things start to unravel a little bit like that, it's a concern. And I think we had chances to get back into the game, and we just screwed the pooch with poor decision. Like the Membry one kicking over the top to Elliott. Look, I get the intent, but that defender was dropping back. Elliott was clear, but the kick was shit, which didn't help. It just went up and over, and
Elliott in.
Like he gave it a lot of airtime and then started banking to the left. Elliott had to really work to get into position for it, but really, Membry should have just ran in and had a shot. And there was a couple of times where players did that. They run into the 50 and went looking short instead of banging it on and having a kick. And I think ultimately that cost us.
Well, that's that sort of, they're not discerning as into, because that's probably a reaction to like, oh, you're bombing. So it's like, don't bomb. But you need to have the ability, the capacity to differentiate between, okay, don't bomb here and take the responsible and let me have the shot myself. I recall when Didek was great at it. Didek was sort of identified, you know what, I'm going to take the onus upon myself. I'm going to have a shot. You need more players who are going to do that. I mean, DeGoey does it. Nick does it to an extent. Talking about what you said, like that Membry on. And I told this story before in '86 when I used to go watch Collingwood train and Lee Matthews as coach. And they were doing a Matt Sim and Brian Taylor marked at about 35-40 straight in front. And Matthew Ryan, our rover, he just raced past, calling for it. And Taylor handled it to him, and Ryan kicked the goal on the run. And Lee Matthews blew his whistle and ripped into him. and said, if you are that far out, you do not risk losing the ball. You turn around, you go back, you have the set shot. And that's exactly what Membry should have done. Something else that, talking about like the way the game went, it really disappointed me that nobody, maybe it's because Pendlebury wasn't there, no one on that side has a brain, but when Brisbane were running hot, it was really disappointing that someone, Moore or whoever, just said, let's just play keepings off for 90 seconds. Let's just slow it down and try and kill their momentum. They're running all over the top of us. We're massively out of position. Let's just slow the game fucking down and see if we can start disrupting them a little bit.
Like what they did against Adelaide.
Yeah, instead it was just this whole hectic insanity and things weren't working, and then they compounded it by, well, let's try that again. And it was just sort of like feeding the Lions, the fuel to just overrun. Oh, not just overrun, so they're overrunning us already, but to absolutely destroy us.
It's the pressure that the Lions put on, and I think there's also the certain amount of pressure you have obviously in your head about wanting to make that grand final. And I think they would have come off the ground pretty happy with themselves at halftime, and rightly so. But when it didn't go our way, I think that sense of panic sort of started to creep in too. And, I don't think we handled as well. And that's one of the things I think, in 22 and 23, we really had that mantra of managing the minutes. And I reckon we've dropped that in the last, certainly this year, we haven't done it anywhere near as well. And, whether that's something that's been worked out or whatnot, but it's like, I think, you constantly need to reinvent yourself, obviously, as a team. And that's one thing where we had a really good thing going and we haven't found anything better to replace it with.
Well, it's interesting to say, because I was thinking about in 2022 and 2023, we had that capacity to overrun sides and to come back really hard. And then you saw last year, we had that North comeback, but we weren't able to really manage that.
Mm-hmm.
And a few times we're in positions like against Essendon on Anzac Day and against Fremantle with the Matt Nichols game, where we let the opposition back in and actually overrun us. And this year it was the same thing. You look at that Gold Coast game, we lost it despite hitting the lead. There was games like that where we just couldn't do what we used to do. And I don't know if the players have lost a little bit of the intensity or hunger, or if the system's broken down, or they just don't have the midfield power to sort of get that overrun happening. Because, another guy who was pretty average for someone who has for a great finals record is Jack Crisp. And he's usually one of the ones who gets them started when we start running hard and going over the top. It is in the last 2 years, they've relied far too much on Nick to carry that side, and he can't do it long term. No one could. But I don't know what their list philosophy is. I don't know how much the guys like Ed Allen, Harry Demattia and all that are actually going to be able to take the next step. And then you get guys like, Ryan Still, who looked okay. But it's like, is he going to be your A-list midfielder? I don't know. And then you look at the opposition, look at the Suns. I don't know they're the Nepo babies, but they got like Anderson and Took Miller and Rao. You look at Geelong, they brought in an A-lister in Bailey Smith. I know he's not a midfielder, but he's playing effectively as a rebounding halfback who's covering the whole ground. They're bringing in like really high quality players. Where is that happening at Collingwood? We get linked to the Silvanis, and that's like, well, is he going to be the game changer, or is he just?
Oh, it's the same as Stephen May. It's like it's clutching at straws recruiting. You're hoping that there's life left in something, or you're hoping you're going to develop something that just nothing but speculative in either instance. You wanted to prove a quality. I thought that's what we're going to get with Houston. I thought we were getting an A-grade rebounding defender, and he was just an abject disappointment right from the get-go.
And if he's injured too, like people said he's injured, then don't play him. You can play injured if you're actually contributing. He isn't, and he hasn't the bulk of the year. And he's had little patches where he's looked all right. But you look at, like, again, okay, let's go to the Brownlow medal. I know it's a farce, but Bailey Smith got like 20 votes. Houston got 3 votes, which is the first game, and that was it. Did not get another vote for the season. That
second game.
Second game of round 1. Yeah, sorry. Yep. But I think that tells you something too, is like how little. And I agree with McRae when he finally moved Houston onto the wing, finally. But that also tells you something. It's not working down back. So now you're trying to find a way to make that work. So that was really disappointing on so many levels, is that they actually recruited someone they didn't necessarily need. He didn't really work out, and it took him so long to say, well, let's try something a little bit different. So it's really, I so a few people have said it. So um, Mark on like our Facebook page has posted it regularly. We got the comment today: is McRae a good tactician? Does he show signs of being a good tactician outside of the stuff like manage the minutes and waste some time and all that sort of stuff? Is it a guy in game to go, I need to make this change? Or is he more the guy who just goes, I'm going with what I know?
It's a hard one to qualify because you look at the results and you can't really fault. You've made, what's it, 4th year?
Yeah.
We've made 3 prelims, won a grand final, and missed finals once. You'd have to concede that whatever he's doing has been relatively successful. But we probably, if you want to go that one step further, that's probably where you're talking about is bringing some of that random uncertainty into things. Not uncertainty, but just that unpredictability in shaking things up a little bit tactically. I probably agree. I think he's very steadfast with the process and the method. Like I think, not that I bothered to give 2 fucks too much about any interviews or highlights or anything after the game. The season's finished for me as far as I'm concerned. I've lost all interest in football, except for the AFLW, because I want some quality in my life.
Equality.
Moore said, I think he was asked about, I did see one snippet, where I think he was interviewed and said, where do you see yourselves next year? And he goes, oh, no, we back ourselves. We've got a lot of belief in ourselves and the process. We think our systems stack up well and structures and all that sort of thing. Well, you can argue probably positive for that, but certainly you'd have to look objectively at the back end of the year, and it really did break down. I think we're all over the moon elated with the Adelaide win, but then the following week Adelaide turned up with an even worse performance. And you think, well, I said to you, how do you think that frames us? It really sort of takes a bit of the shine off the Adelaide win, because ultimately they pushed us for a fair bit, and we just got over the line. I think the form that we took into finals is probably indicative of the form we had in the back end of the season.
Well, that's totally, I think, we all sort of hoped that Adelaide win was, here's a return to the first half season, but it wasn't. It really was an outlier. And if you look at like a lot of the football analysts who looked at Adelaide's performance where they didn't make the right decisions, there was that one where Phil Thorpe was running into pretty much an open goal and went for that big loopy handball. I can't remember who it was to, but like it allowed, I think it was Quain or Moore, it was Parker, to tackle and bring the guy down. So like they sort of made a lot of bad choices. And obviously they've been in the finals for 7 years, so they've got a really inexperienced list. So maybe they just cracked. But I would wish there was a little bit more. The 2 things I'd like to see McRae's coaching is, one, give the young guys a lot more responsibility.
Oh, that has to happen next year, but I don't think it will.
I know he gave, people say, well, he did it with Ned Long. Okay, so let's not forget that Ned Long was a mid-season draftee last year, but they instead went with Jack Bytel and Lockie Sullivan. So it took them quite a while to recognise that. But I think, and you saw at the start of the year when Long was coming on as a sub, and McRae was going, he had this many pressure points and that. So you could see that McRae just really adored the fact that Long brought a lot of pressure. That was what he seemed to rate above everything else, which is why I think he kept backing him in. But there wasn't really any sort of like, here, Ed Allen, you're going to be our centreman. Go back again to Malthouse, and I know it's sort of a different brand of players, but from 2007, so Pendlebury was recruited in for the 2005 draft, played half of 2006, and then by 2007 he was our leading midfielder, pretty much. And he took over from Buckley and Burns and all those sort of guys. So Malthouse was constantly sort of giving those younger guys the big jobs. I want to see McRae do that, and you should have been doing it when you had the framework to do it. We talked about this years ago. Like you get back to 2023 when the goalie missed 6 weeks with that bump of the West Coast player, and Sidebottom went out with a knee. It's like, why not give the Finn McRae, like 6 days? And I'm no advocate of Finn McRae, but I don't think he's ever really been handled that well. He's sort of come in as a sub and then he's been played for 10 minutes, he's been dropped, and he's played as a defensive forward and he's been dropped. It would have been good. Like Malthouse would have said, you're in the middle for 4 weeks. Give me a good return, then you'll be in the middle for another 4 weeks. But it never felt like McRae was given. And maybe McRae's not up to it. Finn McRae's not up to it. They obviously have a much more accurate assessment. If you go to the club down the hall to where the coaches meet, they have a much better understanding of football than we do. That hall.
Than we'll ever will.
Yeah.
McRae's an odd one because you kept him for another year. Was he contracted for 2, or we gave him an extra year?
I don't know.
Whatever the reason, he didn't even get a look in this year.
Oh, he did a shoulder, so he was out for a lot of the year.
But, that could be why.
But that's the one. It's. I would have thought, logically, if I was running the club, as I kept saying, I would have, at the start of the year, I'd have, this is the default side. And then under, Hoskin Elliott's name at half forward or whatever, I'd have, okay, my next option as a replacement for him is whoever it is on the list. And then the replacement for that guy is this guy. And over the next 3-4 years, given Hoskin Elliott's 30, I want these guys to replace him. And I have to give them opportunity if Hoskin Elliott is not producing what we need. I'm not picking the Huskies, I'm just using him as an example. So I really wish that, what Malthouse did over that 4-year period from 2006 to 2010 was, give games to Ben Reid, to Brown, to Thomas, to Sidebottom, to Beams, to Ben Reid, to Tuvey, to, he was doing it. He was constantly turning it over. So by the time 2010 came around, all those guys were, they had a fair few, enough games under them that they started to mature. I just don't see that with this side. It's the sort of thing I really thought in 2006 that once all those stalwarts like Buckley, Rocker, Wakeland and all that started to go, we're going to be doomed because it was who's coming up. But Malthouse just, he cultivated a rebuild on the run. Whereas now it feels like if these players start going, it's there's absolutely nothing there to come in and give you some serviceability outside of what you get from a debutant.
No, I agree. And look, I said, I think it should happen and it has to happen next year. I don't have a lot of confidence that it will. I was talking to my middle son walking back to the car. He handles losses worse than I do. But, I think the simple thing is we've been up now for, 4 years?
Yeah.
It's a long time in football. Brisbane, it's a remarkable effort to make 3 grand finals and they deserve to be there. And I hope they probably win this one because fuck, who wants Geelong to be winning again? But you think it's worth taking a year or 2 out of your cycle to get that mini rebuild going and then blood some kids? Because, generally the rule of thumb is around that 50 to 70 mark, you really should start hitting your straps. But if it takes you 5 years to get to 40 games and it's an interrupted run, when are you ever building consistency at AFL level? You're certainly not going to go back to the VFL and get that same level of experience, and it clearly shows. And then, I think we blooded 1 debutant this year, which was Ned Long.
Still.
2 then.
Long played last year.
Oh, it must be Steele then. That'd be the only one, wouldn't it?
Oh, Charlie West played for half a game.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, jeez. But they're the ones that you want, and it's unfortunate that he went down with the foot injury and missed a fair chunk of the season because he was going the clappers.
But let me just jump in there really quickly. Remember what you were going to say.
Probably close to finishing anyway.
But you brought in that West to look at a 4-line with 4 talls.
I said that was, sorry.
And he said that. He actually admitted that. And it's Fly, I'm not the coach, but your whole game plan is built on Smalls applying frenetic pressure once you send the KS ball in. When you got 4 guys who are lumbering around, you're not going to get that chaos pressure. So what the point? I would have rather, and not meaning to disparage West Coast, but, they have been on the bottom for several years. I would have said, let's rest Mayo, let's rest McStay. Membry, West, you're the 2 talls. Or what, something like that. I would have said, let's actually play on the assumption, look, we're probably going to beat these guys, or we should beat these guys. This is the time we can actually get some games into a young guy, and we've got to give him the best chance of succeeding. Not, hey, let's play him as the 4th tall.
You got some real potential sitting down there. You've got West and Harrison, Hayes, Parker, DiMatteo. I think he had a reasonably good year. There's options there. And you think, well, you look at some of the output of the Triple M's this year, and you think, would you have been any worse playing some of those other forward alternatives, or at least trying to squeeze one in and taking one out? But it just didn't seem to ever happen.
No, I mean, honestly,
well, it didn't seem. It just didn't ever happen.
Didn't it? Well, honestly, I don't even think this. If we played Parker instead of Houston, we would have got a lot more out of that. I think in football, you want one of the three outcomes in any season. So the first outcome, obviously, is to win the flag. That's what most clubs are going to be going for. For clubs like Adelaide, who are sort of sitting in the bottom half of the ladder, it's like we've got to make finals. We've got to get some finals experience. It's time finally to rise. And then there's teams like the Norths and the West Coast who are just not going to make finals, not going to make flag. And then the intent is, well, we've got to get games into the next generation so we can come up. We didn't meet any single one of those criteria. So for me, this is a massively failed year. I don't give a fuck that they were on top for half the year, because there are people who run around going, well, it was a good year, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. You didn't do anything this year. Again, if you go back to like, hey, it's just good enough that we got up there and competed and had a shot at it. And, it's like, well, what's that win you in 20 years? Who remembers that? No one's going to remember you had a shot that you were 10 points clear on the ladder and you fucked it up and, you got nothing out of the year. So I think this year's been an extremely wasted year. And last year we had like a down year, but I can understand it coming off the flag and the short turnaround that you're going to have that sort of shit happen. This year when they reset themselves, they didn't accomplish anything that they should have, and that's the biggest shame. Like if we got like 20 games into Long and 15 into West and 15 into Parker and all that, I would have said, well, okay, at least we're going to get something out. We just didn't do that enough.
Yeah, it seems like in a reasonable year, you probably want to dedicate 75% of your effort to winning games and 25% to development. And I think we ran at about 95% winning games and very
trying to win games,
and very little development. And probably even the back end of that season when you really should have brought an injection of youth, bit of excitement, and whatnot. None of that ever happened. And I think there was some interview, and I can't remember if it was this week or last time, where they were talking about looking around at the youth, and you look at Ned Long, and that's where the conversation ended.
Yeah,
because you really haven't brought anyone else that you haven't been staring at for months and months and months.
And I should actually qualify this. There's a greater imperative here because of the list age profile. You've got 10 guys over 30, and maybe half of them 34 or over. So you really should have been mindful of, hey, we need to turn over. We need to start getting these younger guys in. I don't know if Tom Mitchell's body is shot, but I found it ironic that they basically said he's out of the calculations because at 31. Meanwhile, our primary midfielder is 37, 35, and then our fullback is 34. And it's like, well, that's the age call you made on that guy. So I don't know if his body's just shot and that's why they didn't back him in, but it was a really, really sort of strange way they handled the list this year. And, I understand if you got a relatively young side that you don't really have to worry about that as much. But again, with the list age profile, it really was something they needed to start thinking about. How do we have like a seamless transition from the last generation to this one? And they didn't focus on it at all.
Yeah, I think
that's a great loss.
The one positive of losing, there's two positive I see in losing the prelim.
There's the high draft pick we're going to get.
Well, What we already traded that away?
Probably, I think.
It's first thing is obviously I'd rather find out in a prelim that we're not good enough.
Oh, totally.
Than lose the grand final. Losing a prelim, it's annoying. You're a bit pissed off when you leave the ground, but you rationalise things pretty quickly and you get over it pretty quickly. Unless, of course, you've had just this absolutely dominant year and you've fallen short because you've collapsed like Adelaide, where you spend too much time pondering about what if. I don't think in this scenario you really needed to ponder about what if, because I don't think we would have on that showing and our previous couple of showings without improving on probably what was an overinflated performance against Adelaide. We didn't look like we were going to win a grand final this year during that prelim, apart from one quarter of a football. And it's hard to believe that that's not enough to get you into a grand final these days. And the second thing is like when you get smashed, and I don't think we were smashed, but when you get smashed as an example, but when you lose by 5 goals, it's hard to hide from that result. It's hard to hide from the second half of that prelim and the way that we capitulated and cocked up whatever opportunities we had to fight back. That you've got to realistically look at your list and say, I don't think it's now clearly got another one in it. We have to either hybridise it next year and promote a youth policy. I don't think there's any Hail Mary selections that are going to turn things around. I don't think there's going to be anyone of quality coming to us. You've got to cultivate what you've got, and you're going to have to play it a lot more next year.
Yeah, and I actually wouldn't mind, I know they won't do it, but I wouldn't mind if there was just 1 year, and I said this a few years ago, which is where they just say, we're not going to trade any draft collateral. We just want to get back even on the ledger because we're just constantly sort of
chasing,
buying in or debiting our future. And we become like that desperate gambler who just thinks just one more hand. And it's just like, I think you need to square that because you need to get in the position where when these players come free and all that, you have the collateral to make a legitimate attempt. Right now, I mean, it makes me laugh the amount of times they're connected to really high-profile players. And the Collingwood faithful genuinely seem to believe that they're going to get these guys. And it's like, I think you were struggling to get the free next generation players, the academy players, because you didn't have the draft collateral. That was like something that was going to be difficult to get. Now you're saying, oh, but we're going to get those guys, and we're also going to get Zach Butters, whatever. We're going to have the collateral to go after Charlie Curnow or whatever. And it's like, how? What are you going to sell for him? I mean, the Charlie Curnow's been linked. Would you take him if you could get him?
How old is he? He's
28.
29. Do you want to be in a position where you're contending or rebuilding with someone like that?
Oh, that's definitely contending.
Oh, well, then what's the point? Wouldn't you? He's just going to rob development time out of Weston and Howes or something like that. Sorry?
I'm contending.
No. If we're not contending.
Oh, no, I'm saying we should definitely try. I'm saying if you pick him up, then you definitely think you're close enough to get him.
Which I don't think we will be, even with someone of Curnow's ability.
I mean,
how many goals he kicked this year, Curnow? Do we know?
No idea.
Do we give a fuck? No.
You look at like Melbourne and North going after Brady Mychek. It's like, do you think he'll be part of your next flag side, North? He's like 32. I mean, you'd have to play until 51.
Seriously, I loved Mio from the minute he started playing with us. But if Melbourne or North want to offer him 3 years on more money, you'd be an idiot not to go.
But I'm just saying, is like, why would North think we need a 32-year-old forward, whatever he is?
I don't give a fuck.
On top of Jack Darling, it's like, do you really think you're that close? Do you really think he's going to be the game changer? Similarly with Melbourne. I mean, Melbourne...
I think that for someone like North Melbourne, though, it's just winning more games is enough. It's not so much about contending. It's just something that's going to help them win more than 4 games.
But that goes into the argument that we're talking about. Is like, why would you play a 32-year-old when you should just play a young guy and get the development into him? This is what I'm sort of saying. Is like, they're the guys that you're hoping will bring you to the next level.
Well, so if they offer it, and he'd be foolish.
And I have no problem with him taking. I'm saying like, if you put yourself in the shoes of those clubs, I don't understand their logic of taking a guy for 3 years.
I don't give a fuck what the bottom feeders do.
Well, that's what they are. It's like, but that's what we're doing now. So it's like we're looking at those sort of purchases or those acquisitions. It's like, well, now you're thinking like a Melbourne or North, and meanwhile, the team in the grand final is going after, Oscar Allen and Charlie Curnow's on their thing, and Geelong got Bailey Smith, and they're talking about going for Charlie Curnow. It's like,
and they'll probably get him.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like I remember years ago. I mean, Hot Rod said after Lance Franklin went to Sydney, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, so apologies if I get this wrong, but he said something like, "This shows what the fuck's wrong with the club. Is Sydney gets Lance Franklin, we get Jesse White." And that's pretty much what it feels like.
It's not really changed all that much, has
it? It hasn't really changed. It's you keep trying to moneyball solutions, and it's going to get you into the fight, but it's not going to win you the fight.
No.
And this is like, I remember Buckley just a few months ago, like we brought it up at the time, but he was talking about the importance of system over players. And I think Saturday night shows you, no, you need the players to execute the system. System's not ever going to compensate for not having the right players there.
A good system will cover your deficiencies.
To some extent.
Excellent players will make your system function a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, and you look at Mick Malthouse's tenure at Collingwood in 02-03, he brought up real battling sides to the grand finals, and he had an awesome system, but they just couldn't match it with the best. And then in 10-11, he had a really good list, and they punched up everyone in 210 in the second half of 2010 outside of that draw, the second half of the drawn grand final. And 211, until it all went to the shit, they were on, with 2 games to go, they're on 186% with 20 wins or something. And it shows you, you have a good list, it'll compensate for other things and accentuate it. So you want Brisbane to win? I don't really give a shit. I'll say Geelong. I don't really care.
No, my logic is...
I don't know if I'll watch it.
Actually, I have no motivation to watch it. I think the difference is like something quality.
I might watch Red Sonja again.
He's wasn't that good. Yeah. Fucking hell. You can see why these films sit in development hell for 3 years.
Right now...
Who lost a bet when you released it?
Right now, all 12 of our viewers are going, they watch Red Sonja? Yeah, have this.
Yeah, we're Collingwood supporters. We don't know quality. Look, Brisbane win a flag. No one gives a fuck. Geelong wins it. It's going to be insufferable. That's my only care factor out of the end of it all.
I don't care because the teams I didn't want to win it, they're not in it anymore. So
yeah, as long as Hawthorn were out, I was happy.
That was pretty much it for me.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind if Gold Coast or the Giants won it, for their first on up. I don't know, or Dockers. But yeah, who else was in it? I don't know. Don't care.
I don't care anymore.
Bulldogs didn't want them to win it, but they were nice. Final thoughts.
Like I said, I'm comfortable with the loss, simply because I wouldn't have. I've seen enough losing grand finals. I can happily.
You shot a couple on the weekend.
Fuck. Yeah, both my kids played in the grand final in basketball and lost on the same day. It was the perfect lead into the prelim. But yeah, I'm much happier to lose a prelim every day of the week rather than lose a grand final. And I know, it's all about getting there and all that sort of thing. But I think it's like 22. If we made it that year, I think Geelong, when they walked out the onto the ground that day, they just had that look in their eyes that nobody was going to take it from them. I reckon we would have gone in half-assed then, and we would have gone in half-assed now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you got to be in it to win it, but if you don't win it, then I didn't want to be in it. That's what it really comes down to.
Yep.
And people asking me in the lead up to prelim, are you nervous? I was like, no, I actually don't get nervous at prelims.
No, I was pretty calm.
It's like, if you lose, you're out of it, and that's it. That's the end of the anticipation.
Yep.
But if you win it, and from my experience, when we win it, then the nervousness starts, because then I start thinking the whole week, oh, okay, what if we lose it? What if this?
It's pretty much what anxiety does.
Yeah, and I mean, I go back to 2023. We beat, it was a really close game against GWS. I was really chill during the game, and then we won. I was like, okay, now we need to think about the first few days after a prelim final. You start thinking, well, hopefully there's no injuries, and hopefully that tribunal doesn't just pull out some shit they're going to hit players with.
Yep.
And then I watched the Carlton-Brisbane prelim, and Carlton was 5 goals up, and I got really nervous.
I did then too.
I was like, I think we'll smash the shit out of Carlton, because they were starting to get right out of path.
My anxiety grand final week is bad enough as it is, but facing Carlton would have fucking
and that's what
me.
it was like. I was like, I'd probably take a couple of Mogadon and just sleep through that one, and then just check the score. I remember I had surgery on my leg once. We played for my broken leg. I can't remember. I think we played North or something, but went in surgery in the morning, and then they wheeled me out in mid-afternoon. And first thing I asked my partner at the time was, give me my phone, and I checked the scores, and I saw we'd smashed North by 20 goals, and Footscray beating Carlton. I was like, okay, that's good. And I was like, everything was fine.
This is a true story. It's not relevant to anything, but it just made me think of that. When my son was born in 2012, we had the TV on, and it was a long labour. And I think Carlton were playing North or something in the afternoon then. And just as he was close to coming out, see Carlton were winning on the screen. It just was one of those stupid moments where I forgot about what was happening here, and I thought, I can't let my son or my baby, I didn't know what his sex was at the time, couldn't let the baby be born into a world. The first thing he sees coming out is Carlton in front, and I've leaned over my wife and to get the remote and turn the TV off. And I remember thinking, why the fuck would I do that? It's just the stupidest thing. But at that time, it just felt like it was the most important thing. And that's where my love of Carlton is pretty much exemplified, that I can't fucking stand them enjoying anything. And that leading into that prelim in 23 with them winning, that would have killed me that week. I can't want to face them again. I want to beat them in a grand final. I don't want to face them in a grand final. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just a question, because with you said your baby was being born, you didn't know the sex of it yet. Weren't you going to let the baby choose?
Yeah, well, it's the jury's still out. We're going to have a gender reveal party every weekend.
I don't know. I think, is there any final thoughts? Is there anything we've left out?
No.
Just out of curiosity, what do you think of the Mavia Chol suspension?
Did he get suspended?
Oh, someone told me he got 3 weeks.
Oh, serious? Fuck, I didn't know that. I remember really.
You saw this first. And if you didn't see it first, you saw what his reaction would have been.
That's just a tackle. What the fuck has happened to this game?
I don't know. I think a lot of people are asking that.
3 fucking weeks.
I think that's right. Maybe I have to do some research.
Oh, fuck it.
Yeah, thank you. Final thoughts.
I'm going to hit that sucker square in the nuts.
So this is my last rant. I've retired. You're coming back with Swoop Luke next year.
Yeah, Swoop Luke and I.
But this is my last ever one, and you're back with Swoop
I'm back
Luke.
with Swoop Luke, and we're just waiting for technology to get a camera that can get the two of us in the lens.
That's unnecessary.
What? Why not?
You're going to be hosting a show with him.
Anyway, well, maybe he's taller than me. Yeah.
Here's this. Oh, this has gone into some twisted places.
This is fucking evil.
Did you
No.
Do you enjoy the bloody how heavily windy it was the other night? Because it was all over the place.
Yes.
Did you? Because someone's telling me, your neighbour was telling me that you went out into your backyard to clear something, and the wind was really strong, and your son was going to come out to save you, and you just held him off. And then the wind just picked you up and blew you away.
What a movie.
Anyway, that's it from me.
It's good you finish things on a Man of Steel reference.
Yeah. Why did you say that, man? Why did you say that? Thanks, Zack Snyder. Did you see they're saying Netflix is going to resurrect that timeline or something?
What timeline?
The Snyderverse.
Oh, fuck off. Let it die. Bury it if you have to.
Oh, jeez. Anyway. Well, we can't say later. It's it. Bye, people. Never hit it once.
Fuck, that was just as bad as memory.
Yeah. Oh, well. See ya.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.